When people hear the word Bible, many will think of a single book, but the Bible is actually a collection of 66 books or more, depending on tradition, written across more than 1,000 years by around 40 different authors. And these authors come from different backgrounds. There were kings, shepherds, fishermen, and even prophets. Now, at first glance, that might sound like it's gonna make a chaotic book. And you're right, but when you read the Bible, something surprising happens. It tells one unified story. To understand the Bible, you first need to understand how it's structured. The Bible is not a self help book where you can just take a verse, feel good about it, and then get out. That's not the Bible. The entire Bible has structure. First, it starts with the creation narrative, where God creates a very good world. We see that God created us in His image, full of love and freedom. Then, second, we see how humanity chose to rebel against God, and humanity turns away from Him, and the world falls into chaos. Third, but God doesn't abandon humanity. Because of His rich mercy, He decides to promise a Messiah that will reconcile us with Him. And this is where the Old Testament ends. Fourth, after a long wait, the promised Messiah has come, Jesus Christ, and here He is here to fulfill God's promises and to reconcile humanity with God. Then Jesus dies, is buried, and then He resurrects again. And then Acts talk about the early believers, and then there are many letters explaining Christianity and to address church problems. And finally, fifth, the New Testament ends with the book of Revelations, which shows reconciliations in the present and the future. Is the Old Testament outdated? Like, we don't need it anymore, right? Well, think about a story. If you remove the intro and the conflict, would the climax and resolution make any sense? No. Without the Old Testament, we wouldn't know why Christ had to die for our sins. Like, sin against who? And without the New Testament, we don't have a solution to our sin. Both testaments are inseparable, just like a story. It needs to come full circle. Jesus said it best. In Luke 24, verse 44, he says, "Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." Without the promise, fulfillment is meaningless. Without fulfillment, the promise has no payoff. So, what is the Bible? The Bible is a collection of 66 books or more, depending on tradition, written across more than 1,000 years by 40 different authors or around that, with different professions, regions, and social class. Yet it tells one clear story from creation to the fall to God's promise in the Old Testament, then to fulfillment and final restoration in the New Testament. The Old Testament expects resolution. The New Testament fills that expectation. Both testaments are inseparable, just like a story. So now that's out of the way, I hope we can read the Bible in context, not just pulling random verses out, but reading it how the authors intended us to read it.